Welcome, welcome. This is exciting to be here. First of all, if you're new to listening to me at all, talk about anything fantasy basketball related, my name is Noah Rubin, and this is the first episode of the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast, obviously part of the Old Man Squad Fantasy Network, and we're going to be focusing on the Dynasty players, hence the Young in the Young Man Squad. This is the first episode, and what better way to kick off a new show than to start with an off-season series? The regular season just ended about a week ago, and so we've already had some fun postseason action. The playoffs have already started, but when we're talking about dynasty leagues and actually just fantasy basketball in general, the postseason's fun to watch, and it's always a little bit lower stress because we're not focused on our fantasy teams. We're not focused on the injury reports. And also, conveniently, the injury reports are a lot friendlier in the playoffs. Apparently, everybody's dealing with little injuries that may or may not keep them out of the lineup. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. During the regular season, as soon as the playoffs start, everything's healed. You ask any player, it's like, everybody's hurt at this time of year. But you ask the injury report, almost everybody's good. So it's kind of interesting. It makes the blurb count go way down when we're writing our news blurbs, which is a nice thing. Before I get off on a tangent, well, excuse me, I already have, and that will happen quite often again. But before we get into the actual content for this first episode, which is going to be talking about the Utah Jazz and reviewing them as a team and just kind of talking about some of the players from a dynasty perspective, to kind of go in depth a little bit about how their team and players will impact your dynasty leagues. Before we do that, just wanted to point you to our partners, Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, pun intended, and we're into the NBA and NHL playoffs. There's a lot of ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB to the NHL to the UFC, BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. I'm just pulling up the odds right here on their site. Very easy, a couple clicks, and you can go ahead and use the site. It works out great. Tonight's games will be the Pistons and Knicks game 2. Pistons put up a fight for most of it, and then Knicks took control in the fourth quarter in game 1. Their Knicks are favored by 6.5. I don't think that's an unfair line. I'm sure the lines are all going to be great as they are with all sports books. I'm not the guy to tell you where to take advantage, but I am the guy to tell you that I think I kind of like the Pistons a little bit in this series. I think it showed a lot of fight in that game 1. Excited to see how they respond. A young team blowing a lead in the fourth quarter isn't all that surprising, but I'm excited. It's going to be a fun physical series. And then we also have game 2 after that of the Nuggets Clippers series, which was one of the best games of all the game 1s of opening weekend for the postseason. Nuggets are plus odds for this game. So we'll see. Maybe they can have some more Russell Westbrook magic / survive more Russell Westbrook magic, depending on your angle, depending on your point of view, depending on the possession. Will be fun to see how that series plays out. A lot of exciting series in round 1. I think there's been a handful of blowouts, so not every series is exciting. But for the most part, I'm excited to see. Even game 1 of the Timberwolves-Lakers, where that was a blowout. I don't expect that series to just be a blowout the whole time. I think the Lakers will respond, and we'll get some better games moving forward. And then in between the games, you can head over to the Bet Online Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker, and then just have a live casino there. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, let's get into the dynasty aspect of this episode. We're going to be talking about, as I said, the Utah Jazz. So just a little recap about their season. They finished 17-65. That's the worst record in the NBA. So they will have the best odds to land the number 1 pick, aka Cooper Flag, which is, he's the guy that every team has been tanking for this season. There's a lot of other talented players at the top that will really help out whatever team they land with. But Cooper Flag is the prized pick that everybody's looking for. So they have the best lottery odds. So as of right now, if the lottery just plays out how it's supposed to, they'll have the number one pick. They'll also have picks 21, 43, and 52. So they'll be able to add plenty of rookies if they so choose. That's what they've done the last few years. They are littered with young players. They have some fun vets in there as well when they play, when Utah chooses to play them. But they also have a lot of young guys, which makes them such just a hodgepodge of players. A lot of guys that you look at them or you look at their numbers, you look at some random games and you're like, that's a guy I want on my dynasty team. And then there's a lot of times you look at those same players, different games, and you're like, I'm not loving that. And then you combine that with Utah's direction as a team, the way they've operated the last few seasons, which if you're looking to maximize your lottery odds as they did this season, it makes sense from that perspective. If you're looking to have consistent rotations, doesn't really work out that way. If you're looking to win games, it's not the strategy that they deployed, doesn't really help in that department by design. So I think that that's something that always needs to be considered when we're looking at some of these players, specifically the veterans. I mean, you could even lump in Walker Kessler with the quote unquote veterans, even though he's not. Like, he's still a very young player, but just in the sense that guys like Larry Markkinen, John Collins, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, like, if they're playing them all the time, Utah doesn't have the worst record in the league. I firmly believe that Utah actively trying to win games is much closer to a play-in team than they are to the worst team in the league. And just from a grand scheme of things perspective, you have to wonder, when does that change? When do they say, okay, we feel like we have enough talent that now the best thing for our team is not let's try and add more talent in the lottery or maximize our lottery odds. It's let's get these guys some postseason experience. We have too many young guys to sit here and just make them sit through losing again. We're going to have to pay them new contracts before we're actually ready to compete if we keep doing this. Could that be next season? I don't know. I think if they land Cooper Flag, then you have a serious conversation of, hey, we're going to have a lot more eyes on us this year. There's going to be a lot more nationally televised games, a lot more national media attention, because we have one of the most exciting prospects of the past 20 years. One of, I won't be the one to clarify or make the decision that Cooper Flag is the most exciting player of the prospect of the last 20 years, but he's up there for sure. So we'll see how it plays out, because if they don't, and they have a chance to add AJ DeMonta, Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer in the lottery next year, then maybe you go for it. If you get Cooper Flag and you say, hey, maybe we want to pair Cooper Flag with one of the three guys I just mentioned, then maybe you suffer through one more season of losing for a chance to have potentially two generational prospects on your roster. And then it's like, okay, like, we have too much talent here. There's no reason that we shouldn't be going for this thing. But they're not going to come out and say it. It's what makes it very difficult to project exactly what their rotation is going to look like next season, who's going to get the chance to play a lot. Because, I mean, if they get Cooper Flag and say, hey, we're going to try and win games now, okay, then some of these younger guys that we want to see get minutes may not get them, like Cody Williams, who was just drafted with the number 10 overall pick last year. Like, how quickly does he just get played out of the rotation? Like, to the point where they're like, okay, like, Cody Williams isn't helping us win games. I mean, we're looking at the numbers right here on the screen. That's not top 10 pick numbers right there. 4.6 points, 2.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists. I mean, if we're looking at Basketball Monster, 457th in 9-cat this past season. You could say that's underwhelming for a top 10 pick. Shot 32.3% from the floor. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. But I don't want to ever just tear down or just focus on the negative and just say, yeah, like, forget about it, because every player has a different timeline. And Cody Williams certainly wasn't expected to come in and just be the most NBA ready prospect in this draft. He was more of a toolsy long term project. So while it was underwhelming for his rookie year, and we were probably hoping for some more flashes, there wasn't really any. I think he's a guy that's going to take time and, still has a chance. I'm not going to give up on anybody after one season. Now, if they do end up with Cooper Flag and they kind of decide, hey, we're going to try and win games, then does Cody Williams get the chance? Does he spend most of next season in the G League just because they are trying to win games and they're like, hey, we still want to develop you, but like we can't give you NBA minutes to try and develop you. Maybe if we try and win games, try and make the play in, don't make it. And yeah, last couple weeks you can get some minutes and we'll see how you've developed. And then after that, it's like, ooh, where do we go from here? We have too many lottery picks, too many first round picks on this team to sit here and just be patient. And you think that when a team is in a tanking mode for a few years that they're willing to be patient with everyone, but at some point you can't just lose forever. So I still think Cody Williams has the upside to be a really impactful player, but it's going to have to happen sooner, or at least like show progression next season or over the summer. I mean, there's no way he doesn't play summer league. Like we're going to have to see how he looks over the summer. Rookies, obviously you're like, okay, if they play really well, that's great. If they struggle, it's whatever. It's no big deal. We can't draw too many conclusions from summer league. But if they play really well, then that's like reason to be optimistic. If you're looking at a second year player, maybe your expectations are a little bit higher, but obviously you don't want to draw too many conclusions unless they're just flat out awful or just clearly don't belong out there because they're too good. When you get into like a third year player, you're looking at, okay, they better dominate, play 2 games and dominate, and then be so good that we kind of can't play them anymore. So, I mean, there's gonna be eyes on Cody Williams this summer. I think as far as second year players, he's gonna be one of the guys I'm most interested in seeing how he performs over the summer because we need to see some flashes to remain optimistic about what he's going to look like moving forward. Let's see here, but there is a lot of other intriguing players on this team. I would say that none of them, I guess, solidified or I guess had a better season to make me more optimistic about them than Kyle Filipowski. Especially down the stretch of this season, because if you just look at the numbers, 9.6 points, 6.1 rebounds, to 1.9 assists isn't great, but he had some really good games, especially the last couple of weeks. Specifically, he had the 30-point, 18 rebound, 5 assists, 3 steal, 2 block, 2 3-pointer game against Portland in April. Now, he had a couple other double doubles, a couple other big scoring nights, some other big shot blocking nights. Like clearly a guy that has a fantasy friendly game that you also have to ask the question of, okay, if they're trying to win games and they have Walker Kessler in front of him, like where do we go? Like how many minutes is Kyle Filipowski getting? Could it be like as quickly as next season where we're in a 28-20 minute split between Kessler and Filipowski and both can be somewhat productive? Like neither is going to be, top 25, top 50 player next year, but you get both enough minutes that they could both continue to develop in a winning setting. Now, if it's another rebuilding year for Utah, then maybe you're looking at more minutes for Filipowski and then obviously plenty for Kessler early on, slowly dialing back, slowly having missed games. That's what they've done the last couple seasons. Not because of illegitimate injuries. I don't want to speculate on that, but I think that it's easier to like stretch the truth on some injuries, especially if it's helping you improve your lottery odds second half of the season. But we'll see exactly how that works out. I'm pretty optimistic about Filipowski, probably more so than anyone else. I don't want to say he's not my favorite prospect on this team, but he was very good down the stretch of the season. And he's one of the guys I'm pretty optimistic about because I think one of the main conclusions that I don't think I was alone in this, but that I kind of drew from the season was that I don't feel great about any of these young guys being like a number one or number two option on like a playoff team. I think that there's a couple guys that have that level of upside to be a number two. I don't really think any of them have the upside to be a number one. But Filipowski, I think, is a guy that if he is a starting center playing 30 minutes per game, like he blocks shots, he hits threes. I mean, he had a couple games where he's able to get some steals. Obviously, he rebounds. He can be a really good fantasy player. I think he has a fantasy friendly game, especially in category leagues, and is definitely a guy worth stashing. I have my latest Dynasty rankings, which was probably like a month or two before this. So he would have definitely risen from that, but he was inside the top 150 then. I think he's closer to a top 100 guy now. And a lot of it was because of the flash down the stretch. Not because I think he's going to come out next season and all of a sudden just be that guy again. But he showed enough flashes for me to say, okay, like I see it. I think he was a guy that slipped in the draft a little bit. Like there was the weird storyline going on there that may or may not have impacted his slide down the draft. And then ended up with Utah in the second round when he was like projected top 20 and plenty of mocks, maybe even closer to a lottery guy. It's made him a great value. And then he landed with Utah. So there's a lot of competition for minutes with a lot of these young players, which not all of them can work out. So we'll see which ones do. I think probably my favorite prospect still, it's probably going to take a lot for him to not be my favorite prospect on this team, is Taylor Hendricks, who did not play much this past season because of the injury. He's, out for season. Believe I'm going to pull this up as I'm saying it. Believe it was a knee. Nope, broken leg. Full on broken leg. That's what it was. 3 games into the year. Averaged, 4.7 points, 5 rebounds. Suboptimal. He had a 12-point game in their first game and then was scoreless in game 2 and then scored 2 points in game 3 before his season ended. So if you look at that, you're like, that wasn't great. But they were giving him, first of all, he started all 3 games, played 29 minutes in the first game. I'm saying game 1, game 2. It sounds like I'm talking about the playoffs, especially because it's playoff time. But of the regular season, game 1, Taylor Hendricks, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, 3 threes in 29 minutes. Game 2, again, scoreless, but 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks in 25 minutes. And then before breaking his leg, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block in 21 minutes. So it's the well-rounded aspect of his game. It's going to, he's just going to have great category league upside as long as he's playing significant minutes. He can space the floor, decent rebound numbers. The defensive numbers are going to be where he kind of makes his money. And then we'll see how he develops the score. Now, just like with a handful of guys on this team and a lot of guys on tanking teams, it's a very good class. I would say for Taylor Hendricks, probably the worst case scenario for his development is Cooper Flagg landing there. I also I wouldn't love Ace Bailey landing in Utah for Taylor Hendricks, because if you get Ace Bailey in there and you're wanting to get him minutes early on, I don't know exactly how that rotation shapes out. Like Lauri Markkanen's playing a lot early on. John Collins is playing a lot early on. Walker Kessler's playing a lot early on. Maybe you want to get your guy, if you get him in the top 3, right into the starting lineup or playing a significant role. Where does Taylor Hendricks factor in? He's coming off missing almost all of last season. Do they prioritize the guy entering year 3 over the guy entering year 1? It's kind of hard to, obviously it depends on how much Hendricks is able to develop, how well he's able to recover from that injury. So a lot of question marks here still, but he's my favorite prospect on this team still. And I'm hoping it works out for him. I'm hoping he's able to come back and have a strong year 3, because he does have the upside there to be a really fun player in fantasy category leagues, whatever you want to call it. I'm just adding words just to add words at this point. Which, as I said, I can ramble. I will do that. All right, who else is fun from Utah? Let's talk about a guy that's probably one of the more intriguing Dynasty players. coming off his rookie season. I think we'll get into him a little bit more with Friday's episode as well. But Isaiah Collier, who averaged 8.7 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 6.3 assists. I believe that was top 15 in assists, maybe 14th per game, maybe higher. I'm trying to remember that number off the top of my head. I don't remember. Maybe I brought it up in that episode, and that's why I'm talking about it. But yeah, the assist there, especially once he kind of moved into the starting lineup in early January permanently, like a handful of games early on where he's getting at least 7 assists, a few double doubles in there. He had a 14 assist game in February, a couple double doubles. Like he didn't play the last 3 games. So he had a 22 point and 10 assist game, which was probably one of his better performances of the season because early on it was a lot of assists and a lot of turnovers and not a lot of points. And you're like, okay, like this is still fairly valuable because of the assists, but there's not like we need to see more for him to be a legitimate dynasty like commodity. We saw him get plenty of steals in college as well, and he had some games this year where he was able to provide decent steals, averaged 0.9 over the course of the season, 1.1 over the last 25 games. So like he can be a decent option there. He's a bigger guard, like a strong guard, physical guard. Think how he develops as a scorer is going to impact a lot of things for him. But again, none of these guys I feel like are such good prospects that they are situation proof, especially coming in with a really good class. So again, we'll talk about this in Friday's episode. But if Utah gets the number 2 pick and takes Dylan Harper, like you don't not take Dylan Harper because you have Isaiah Collier coming off a very good rookie year. You don't miss out on a talent like Dylan Harper. And then that changes things for Isaiah Collier, for Keontae George. And then it also makes you question, okay, like what do they do with Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson? They'll have a lot of questions. There's guys at every position, which makes it pretty difficult to say, okay, like with Utah, like this is the position they want. Like, no, they want best player available because the position they need to fill is franchise player. That's who they need to get. And this is a great draft to do it. So is the next one. They just need in reality, they love the number 1 pick in this draft, but I'd say to get a safe, like franchise player, top 2 pick in this draft or top 3 pick in the next draft. And you can still maybe figure that out without getting one of those top guys because it's a very talented class. But if we're talking about just like from day one, like, okay, we're going to start building our franchise around you. Like, yeah, it's from this class. It's the safe guys are probably Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. And then there's some other guys that have that level of upside. It makes me say about Isaiah Collier's rookie year, like it was great. I really think that he proved he can be an NBA point guard. And does that mean that Utah is going to want him to be their starting point guard just moving forward just because they gave him the job in January? I'm not entirely sure. Like if I don't know, I think you have the numbers look good, but you also need to win games to like really establish your role. And yes, he was one of the best passers in the league and led the team in assists, and he did it on a 17-win team. So like I think you need to do something like that on a playoff team to really like say, okay, like now you're the franchise point guard. Of course, that's by design, so it's not fair to him. But I think that it kind of makes you say, okay, like we get a guy like a Dylan Harper that changes things as far as how we view Isaiah Collier. The only other, the top point guard guys, you have Jeremiah Fears. A lot of the other guys can be seen as good playmakers that aren't necessarily point guards. Agor Damon. I need to freaking remember how to say that. I'll figure out all the names before the draft, I promise. So there's other guys that could be there. So I like Isaiah Collier. I think he was a fantasy friendly rookie, which there wasn't a ton of those this year. I think Collier, especially for a guard, was one of the few rookies that you could roster. So there's definitely upside there. I don't want to just lock him in as one of the best prospects in Utah. He probably is one of the better ones, but his situation's cloudy. It's almost hard to trying to do this episode, I was thinking, I was like, all right, what are my points going to be? Who am I going to really want to highlight? I'm like, okay, like these are the intriguing guys to talk about, but so much just isn't set in stone with the Jazz. It shouldn't be. If you're coming off, even if it's by design, having the worst record in the league, you can't say we have these things figured out. You don't. You have options. You have players with the upside. There should be nothing solidified in Utah's rotation. I think, I mean, Lauri Markkanen's an all-star talent. He didn't have a great year this year when he played. And then even then, he didn't play a ton. He played 47 games. John Collins was really good when he played 40 games. Like, it's really hard to predict how this team's going to look. Just to kind of run through a few more guys. I know I just mentioned Markkanen and Collins. Do they make trades? I believe the thing with Lauri Markkanen was that he would be trade eligible this summer, that he intentionally signed the extension so that he wouldn't be moved at the trade deadline. But could they move him this summer? Could they say, actually, no, like he's the guy we're building around still? Like, I don't know. It's a weird situation to me. Does John Collins, did he do enough this past season to build out legitimate trade value where a contending team's going to say, yeah, I'll give you a legit piece for him because he's a good basketball player. The Hawks traded him when his value is at an all-time low. But I mean, it's been like a recuperation project for the Jazz. They could definitely get some value back for John Collins, and he could definitely help a winning team. Same thing with Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, and Markkanen. Like, do they value them more as players to help build the team with? Because frankly, Markkanen is the only one you could kind of build around, but I don't think you're building a championship team around Lauri Markkanen. I think he's a very good piece to build a championship team with. We'll have a lot of answers in a few weeks after the draft lottery as far as what things could potentially look like in Utah, because I think just like I'm probably going to say this every single episode as we talk about each team. If you win this draft lottery, things change for you. The makeup of the way you're building your team changes. A couple of these teams have been preparing for adding that type of player. I'd say Utah is. They've been adding a lot of young guys that could be on a similar timeline with a guy like Cooper Flag, and they just need to make the decisions on who. They could also package a couple of young guys to bring in a star and like quickly build a team around Cooper Flag if they so choose. There's a lot of guys on here. A couple of the other ones I haven't mentioned yet. I really like Bryce Sensabaugh. I'm not sure he's a great category league guy. I think he's a good scorer, good shooter. I think he also kind of needs a high volume to really be super impactful at this point of his career. So if Utah again runs it back with a rebuild, then we could see some fun Bryce Sensabaugh games next year, and hopefully he kind of takes a step forward and is able to do it more consistently. Keontae George, he's probably one of the hardest ones to project on this team because when things are going well, you can see it. Like he just has it. But also he shot 39% from the field this year. Like the numbers weren't fantastic. He got demoted to more of a reserve. It seemed like his rookie year, even though he kind of came in as more of a shooting guard, they were like, okay, we're going to try and make you a point guard. Oh, wait, well, now we have Isaiah Collier. Keontae George, we kind of like you as a reserve. Now, on a legit team, I mean, like Jordan Clarkson's a great comp for Keontae George. Could he be a sixth man, like a really good sixth man on a playoff team? I think so. Is he a starting caliber guard? I think that remains to be seen. I think he has the upside to, but I wouldn't bank on that. I wouldn't say I want to build my team with Keontae George as my starting point guard or shooting guard. But he's also 21. Like maybe he takes enough steps and shows enough growth that you're like, oh, okay, like this is who we thought he could be. Because after year one, I think we were pretty optimistic about him. And then after year two, I think my expectations or my, I guess, optimism around him has kind of not really been there. And I think it was just a disappointing season overall. And again, that was partially by design. Like Utah wanted to lose games and wanted to maximize their lottery odds. And I think that if they end up as Cooper Flag, then yeah, they did their job. I think probably the only other player that's really worth mentioning that we haven't even mentioned yet, and this is probably like a very deep cut for Dynasty leagues, which is what we like, is Johnny Juzang, former UCLA star, had some pretty strong performances this year. I'll also mention Oscar Sheboy because he's an incredible rebounder when he's on the floor, but he's not a guy that I think is going to be a starting center for the Jazz. So I don't really even see the path for fantasy value within the next couple of years outside of silly season, but he's a good enough rebounder that if he ends up in a situation, maybe it's with Utah, maybe it's probably more likely with another team where he's playing significant minutes, then if you're in a redraft league, like the guy can freaking rebound. So if you need help in that category, then that's kind of the way to go. I think that's most of Utah. I think, again, just to probably summarize the exact point I've been making this whole time, we're just going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to see how the lottery plays out. We're going to have to wait and see what moves they make because of that this summer. And if they even try and win games next year. Because if they are trying to win games, then we're looking at more minutes for some of the more veteran players. If they're not, then we're looking at probably a similar rotation as what we saw this year, where some of the veterans were seeing like regular minutes early on, and then we're slowly phased out of the rotation, try and maximize the lottery odds. Makes it a difficult thing to project regardless of your league format. But I feel like, just to kind of sum up the Jazz in general, this is a treasure chest of guys with upside, but I don't feel great about any of them. I don't feel like, okay, like this guy is a lock to be a stud. A lot of guys on this team have that potential, but it's just which ones do you believe in? This was episode 1. Probably won't keep up with that for you guys every single time, but this was the first one. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you to Dan for allowing me to host a show on your network. We'll be trying to do these often. I'm going to say early on, these will be just a Monday through Friday, daily episode, where we'll just start by breaking down some of these teams and then having some fun guests on Fridays to talk about more of a general dynasty topic. But I think it's going to be a really fun summer, really busy summer. It's fun to talk more of the grand scheme of things type of topics, as after doing a long, busy season of blurbing every single night and focusing more on the day-to-day stuff. So this was my warm-up as well, just to try and figure out the flow of how things are going to work. I'm currently, as I'm speaking, trying to think of a way to outro this the best that I can. So as the episodes keep rolling on and on, this will get better. We'll get better information out, better flow to the episode. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Show. And I appreciate you guys checking it out.